All right, we are live on Facebook, so I want to say welcome to everyone who's tuning in through Zoom, as well as tuning in on Facebook Live. It's my pleasure to have special guests. We've been chatting away, and the program hasn't even started yet. We are welcoming the DIA for their behind the scene presentation. Today, it's Seeking the Sacred, and it's my pleasure to have our presenter this evening, Miss Connie Corrigan. She's been a docent for 15 years. And I was told to mention that she has her master's in public speaking and she's excellent at it. We can tell because she's has a lot of interesting things to talk about. I'm so pleased to have her as my special guest. Also, I want to thank assisting with technology is Kimmy Wolf. She's the education coordinator for the IA. So thank you so much for joining us. And I want to turn it right over to you, Connie, so we don't waste any time. Thank you
Okay,
and welcome.
thank you. Again, welcome to this behind the scenes talk.
Okay.
Okay, all right, let me get rid of this little continue sign away. Next slide. Seeking the sacred. Comparing the different ways people throughout the world and throughout time have used works of art to hold, communicate, and reinforce ideas about religion, spirituality, and cosmology can help us better understand our own ways of thinking about the world, our place in it, and each other. Next slide. So we're starting with ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt. So what we're looking at here are idealized bodies that are associated with the gods. These are Greek. These objects hold, communicate, and reinforce ideas about cosmology. So these are Roman copies of Greek originals from the 5th century BCE, before Common Era. Romans admired Greek art and often copied it. Most of the original Greek sculptures were made of bronze. They were melted down to create arms during one of the many wars in Greece. They would have been painted. Statues like this were mostly likely in temples dedicated to each god or goddess. Religion was never far from public life in ancient Greece. There were festivals, sporting events, public and private events that were held in honor of the gods and goddesses. Each god and goddess had their own human face and their own domain. They were believed to respond to human acts of piety. Aphrodite, that we see on the left here, she was the Greek goddess of love. Her broken left arm probably held an apple, symbolizing that she won the judgment of Paris. This event is where she was dedicated as the most beautiful goddess. The sculpture of Aphrodite was depicted on the backs of Roman coins, so the form was very well known. Apollo on the right, the Greek god of light, music, prophecy, healing, and the hunt. He is the perfect male in Greek mythology. He is what remains, he has now what remains of his attribute, the quiver strap across his chest. The quiver from this is now lost, so we don't have it, but it did indicate that this was his attribute. Next slide. This is the falcon of Horus, Egyptian. While Greek gods were depicted in human form, Egyptian gods were often depicted in animal form. These objects were placed in tombs and were commissioned by kings and the very wealthy. Osiris, the first king or pharaoh, is the Egyptian god of the sky and the sun. He was killed by his brother Seth, who usurped his throne. Horus was the son of Osiris and Isis, the Egyptian mother goddess. Horus was conceived while Isis was in the form of a sparrowhawk. She resurrected the executed Osiris by fanning his body with her wings. She breathed enough life into him to conceive Horus. Osiris goes on to be the ruler of the underworld, and he remained a powerful deity. After numerous confrontations between Horus and Seth, the other gods asked Osiris to intervene. Osiris said that he would send demons to the realm of the gods if his son was not made king. Horus became pharaoh, and every successive king is regarded as the living Horus. He is shown here as a falcon or wearing a falcon head. The Eye of Horus is a frequent motif in Egyptian art, representing his protective vision. The falcon in this statue wears a crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, signifying his rule over the whole kingdom. The statue may have held mummified falcon remains as a tribute to Horus. The mummified bird would have been inserted through the opening under the tail. Next slide. This is the sacred cat of Bastet. Bastet, pronouncing it properly, was an Egyptian goddess of love, sex, and fertility. She was depicted as a domestic cat or with a cat head. According to myth, she was the personification of the soul of Isis. Originally, she was shown as a lioness, but her gentle nature prompted ancient Egyptians to change her symbol to that of a domestic cat. She carries the characteristics of a cat, both gentle and fiercely protective. Cats were mummified in her honor and kept in her tomb. Cats were important to Egyptians as they killed vermin and slowed the spread of disease, as well as protecting crops. Bastet is also an ally of the sun, Ra, the creator sun god and supreme deity of Egypt. That's her father. Next slide. We go to another religion, Judaism. Here we have the Jewish cemetery by von Ruysdael, Jacob Isaac von Ruysdael, a Dutch painter. This painting depicts the Jewish cemetery, Beth Ham, House of Life, located in Ouderkerk, 5 miles outside of Amsterdam. Sephardic Jews moving into Amsterdam following their expulsion from Spain and Portugal quickly established this cemetery in keeping with the Jewish tradition of burial immediately following death. The landscape is a composite of tombs from Beth Ham, as well as ruins and hills from other areas in and around Amsterdam. The painting includes the Calvinist belief in the transience of life by including unidentifiable ruins of buildings and tombs, dark storm clouds we see off to the upper left, and broken limbs with brightening skies to the right, a rainbow, birds, intact tombs, and new growth. It can be read as an allegory, an expression of vanitas and the futility of human endeavor, but hope and redemption are also visible. This is very popular and is often loaned, so we're always grateful when we can come to the museum and it's actually there. This was made for a Christian audience by a Christian artist, even though the subject matter is Jewish. Ruysdael was believed to be a Mennonite before becoming a member of the Reformed Church of Amsterdam. Mennonites were particularly sympathetic to the Jews, so many of them sought refuge in the Dutch Republic. Mennonites began as the radical wing of the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century Dutch Republic and are known for their emphasis on issues such as peace, justice, simplicity, community service, and mutual aid, which is probably why they were so very sympathetic to Jewish people. And the Dutch were unbelievably open-minded about the Jewish race. There wasn't that anti-Semitic sense there that there was in Spain and other places. They were very welcomed. And along with all their other attributes, their intelligence was deeply appreciated in the trading ventures that the Dutch did. In fact, it's kind of neat. It's not part of this talk, but later the British watched how successful the Dutch were in their trading ventures, and they started being a little more open to letting Jewish people into the British Empire, because they were really cutting themselves off from an awfully intelligent people. Next slide. Here we have Judith with the head of Holofernes, done by the famous Italian artist Titian. This represents the beautiful Jewish heroine Judith, who under her own initiative struck into the enemy camp at night and ingratiated herself to the enemy leader Holofernes. Holofernes was the head of the Assyrian army that had laid siege and encamped in Judith's village, right outside her village. So assisted by her maid, she entered the camp, got into his tent, was invited into it, and there, after getting him drunk, she beheaded Holofernes. Oh, stronger than I am, slashed her head in a sack and placed it on a pole at the entrance to the city. She got away with it. She and her servant were able to quietly leave the camp, then plant this head on a pole. When the Assyrian army awoke, saw the head, they realized that this endeavor was doomed and they fled. Judith came to personify civic heroism and pride, and it was unusual. She was a heroine at a time when there weren't a lot of female heroes in both literature or art. Titian represented the subject of Judith at this time because the eastern parts of Italy and the Christian world were under assault by the Ottomans. In 1571, a Venetian naval battle was won, and the Christian League celebrated this victory over the Ottoman Turks, and therefore Judith in the painting may personify the city of Venice. This is the only time that the artist painted this subject. He trained under the masterful hand of Giovanni Bellini, and then Titian became the official painter of the Republic of Venice after the death of Bellini. Next slide. Now here we have two beautiful works by Elihu Vedder, an American artist. We have Samson on the left and Delilah on the right. These images contrast the strength of the male with the seductive charms of the beguiler. Samson was one of the Old Testament judges. He is known as a womanizer with great physical strength. Delilah was a Philistine and Samson's one of his lovers. She was bribed by the Philistines to help them bring down Samson. She was able to extract the truth from him about the source of his strength. He attributed that strength to his hair, which had never been cut. In her chamber, Delilah cut Samson or lulled him to sleep and then cuts off his hair, rendering him weak and helpless. Vedder depicted this story many times over the course of his career. In these two particular works, we see these beautiful frames. These frames were designed by the artist and executed by an Italian frame maker. The frame, you can't see it that well on the slide, but when you come, look closely at them. They include biblical motifs of the story of Samson and Delilah. It shows the lion that Samson killed with his bare hands, the 3 honeybees that produced honey in the lion's carcass, the jawbone of the ass he used to kill the Philistines, ropes that he told Delilah would hold him. Then on hers, scissors used to cut his hair, silver coins that she was paid, and the millstone Samson used to grind grain while in the Philistines' prison, and the cracked pillars of the house he tore down, leading to his death and those of his captors. It doesn't choose a specific moment of the story, but rather it's a juxtaposition of Samson and Delilah's characteristics, strength and seduction. The respective names of these two wonderful people are written in Hebrew on the top of each frame. This was in a private collection until it was sold and then donated to the DIA by the buyers. So there's so much involved in these. They're so exquisitely done. Next slide. Now we're moving to Islam, and this is a gorgeous Quran. This Quran is just so very, very special. This lavish Quran was commissioned probably by a prince for donation to an important mosque. The calligraphy in it, this is an important part of the Quran. The text is beautifully and exquisitely presented with gold and other precious materials because it is believed to be the actual word of Allah. This separates it from the Christian or Jewish texts, which are an interpretation, not believed to be the actual word. Now, this Quran is written on Chinese paper that has been tinted with 10 different colors and flecked with gold. The paper is such high quality that it has survived nearly unaltered for almost 600 years. It's made of hemp and flax fibers. These rolls of Chinese paper have a very interesting background, as we say, the backstory. They were sent to the Mongol conqueror Timur, or Timberlane as we sometimes know him, by the Ming Emperor of China to try to keep Timberlane from invading China, and it worked. It was a diplomatic gift. These paper rolls were never used by him, though. They were stored in a treasury. After his death, his sons acquired the paper, which were then used to create this Quran. There are only 2 of them. The calligraphy and illuminated designs in the margin were done, and this part I find so fascinating. Today's news talks all about Afghanistan, and it's so far removed because this was designed and done by an unknown master in the 1400s from the royal court in today's Afghanistan. Can you imagine a royal court in today's Afghanistan? Maybe they would run the country a bit better than it's being run right now, but that makes it sound so unbelievably beautiful and kind of mysterious. And when you come to the museum, in our Islamic galleries, all of the art there is not necessarily Islamic, but it was done under the governors of Islam who governed all these different areas. But this particular one was done by Islamic artists. It's in a corner, and there's a wooden barrier that you can lean on and then really look at this breathtaking work. And curators or their assistants will use gloves and change the page every week. So you could literally come back every week to the DIA and see a different page. So this is something that our marvelous director, Valentina, was able to get for us. And oh my, it's one of our marvelous treasures. Such a large manuscript would have rested on a stand. And so therefore we have it on a stand too. But I like, because we've brought it as close to you as we can with this wooden barrier to lean on. And of course there's glass below you, so you're not going to hurt it or damage it, but it gives you a chance to really, really look at it. Next slide. Let's go to our next slide. Now here we have a warrior's tunic from the Asante culture in Ghana in Africa. This is a very rare object. All the pieces that exist and are together. Tunics such as this would have been worn by a warrior chief. It would have been passed down from generation to generation, with additional amulets and other components being added to the tunic. That's what you're seeing on this, are these marvelous little amulets. The tunic is boiled in herbs to give it its color and its first level of protective powers. The additional Quranic amulets and pieces from ancestors increase the tunic's protective powers to the wearer. Leather encased amulets are sewn onto the tunic. Inside the amulets could be herbs, animal skin, medicines, or special materials that add protection for the wearer. Some amulets contain inscriptions from the Quran. Islam has existed in Africa since the 7th century due to the Arab trade. The written word to many of the Asante is very precious. Islam in West Africa especially was far more tolerant of local traditions than were other religions. Next slide. Now we come to Christianity. Here we have this delightfully detailed, just exquisite triptych from the 14th century, an unknown French artist. Now this is read from bottom to top and from left to right across all of the different layers. The bottom left is the Annunciation and Visitation, where the angel comes to Mary and tells her that she's going to have Jesus. The bottom right is the Annunciation to the shepherds, the Nativity, and the adoration of the Magi. The middle left, presentation in the temple and Jesus among the doctors. The middle right, we have a lot of things going on here. We have the wedding at Cana and the Last Supper. The top left, we have the crucifixion, the resurrection, and the ascension. And the top right, we have the Pentecost and the crowning of Mary. Small, luxurious Gothic ivories like this were carved as devotional objects, and they saw a burgeoning in popularity during the late Middle Ages, a time referred to as the era of private devotion. Mary came to occupy a central role in late medieval spirituality. She is increasingly seen as an accessible figure to whom the faithful could appeal for help. The small scale of these devotional ivories provided imagery for private prayer and contemplation. Ivory carvings were popular with both the clergy and the wealthy. They were portable, and they could carry them around and use them whenever needed or desired. This influx of ivory into France during the late Middle Ages was the result of an active Mediterranean trade during and following the Crusades. Because of the sumptuous quality of elephant ivory that we're seeing here, and its ability to be carved with a great attention to detail, it became a popular item that led to its being exploited by poachers and leading to the near extinction of the African elephant. Now, I find that a shame, and I'm grateful they weren't. But oh my goodness, the detail on this is so exquisite, and it looks so two-dimensional when you see it. It looks like the figures are popping out of this, even though it's so small, and it just includes so much of the story of Jesus. Most of the ivories were painted, and traces of polychromy still exist in the corners of this triptych. You can see little hints of it. Triptych means, if you didn't know, it means two panels. I didn't know that before I started to work at the DIA, so there's no shame in not knowing it. Next slide. Now here we see a pendant to a rosary or a chaplet. These small ivory carvings convey one of the most profound themes of the late Middle Ages, memento mori, a reminder of the transitory nature of life and the inevitability of death. This bead or pendant was used at the end of a rosary or chaplet, which was a wreath for the head or a string of beads. It was owned and used by the church or the very wealthy. The Latin inscription around the collarbone is, O mores quam amora est memora tua, or O death, how bitter it is to be reminded of you. The repetition of prayers and liturgical text was a very important part of the late medieval devotion. The Rosary, which became popular by the 14th century, is a collection of these texts devoted particularly to Mary. Strings of beads to assist those saying the long sequences of recitation also came to be known as rosaries. So we see this pendant has two faces. On the one side, on the left, is the death mask, and on the right is a skull covered with snakes and other reptiles. Then way over on the right, we see it in profile. The death mask that we see on the left is meant to evoke pity, with its skin sagging over its sunken cheeks, its bulging half-closed eyes, and its slack jaw and parted lips through which the teeth can be glimpsed. The skull now on the right, that evokes terror with its fiendish grin and its slithering vermin. And we can still see traces of color on the bead. Next slide. This is Virgin and Child with Angels, done about 1460 by Benozzi Gazzoli, an Italian artist. And look at the colors. Oh, the rich, rich, beautiful colors. In this image of Mary and infant Jesus, Mary is shown as Queen of the Heavens, indicated by the star on her shoulder. You can see the star on the blue shoulder off to the left. She is sumptuously dressed in a cloak. If you see the arm, see how it's lined with ermine? The neckline and cuffs of her dress are ornamented with painted precious jewels. This image would have been at a side altar at the church or cathedral, and it would have been viewed only by members of the clergy. The sumptuousness of this image is intensified by the pigment used. It was egg tempera mixed with semi-precious gems and covered in gold leaf. Now Jesus, it's very tiny, but you can see Jesus is holding a goldfinch, a bird that prefers to eat thistles and other thorny plants, and thus symbolizes the Passion of Christ. They are surrounded by multi-winged angels called seraphim in red. This is the highest order of angel, and cherubim blue as the second highest. Seraphim surrounded God in perpetual adoration. cherubim govern the stars and elements. They are always depicted as a head with multiple sets of wings. The Latin inscription on Mary's halo reads, Ave Maria Gracia Plena, or Hail Mary, full of grace. The words or the letters on the halo of Jesus is Latinized Greek for Jesus Christ. Next slide. Oh, here are two other exquisite, just the colors again are so exquisite. These are by Fra Angelico, Italian artist. Annunciatory angel on the left and the Virgil Annunciate on the right. And they're very small, they're not big. These two small panels are part of a larger altarpiece. They likely would have framed a larger center painting. It would have been viewed only by the clergy. Gabriel's hand on the left, his gesture indicates that he has just given Mary the message that she is going to give birth to Jesus. On the right, we see Mary, depicted just after she heard Gabriel's message. She holds a book in her hand, representing divine revelation. Her head is slightly bowed, indicating that she will submit to God's will. And look at the sensitivity on both the angel's face and on Mary's face, and the delicacy of their hand gestures. Oh, the Annunciation was a very common theme in Italian Renaissance art. The prevalence of the Annunciation in Christian art reflects its doctrinal importance. Monastic orders placed themselves under its patronage. Fra Angelico was a Dominican friar in a monastery near Florence, but he worked as an artist fulfilling commissions for aristocratic families and Pope Eugene IV. The Dominicans defended traditional church teachings during the time of humanism, when there was an emphasis on education and expanding knowledge, and an exploration of the individual and civic responsibility. Next slide. Next slide. Here we have Adam and Eve, done by Dürer, German artist. The Fall of Man. The figure of Adam and Eve are present in the Hebrew Bible, as well as the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. Dürer used his understanding of science to create the idealized human body and his well-honed observational skills in his depiction of the animals and foliage. Dürer was among the first Northern artists to travel to Italy, expressly to study Italian art and its underlying theories. The animals populating the image are symbolic. I love this. It took me a while to figure it out. There's a cat and a mouse down at the bottom. The choleric cat, the melancholic elk, the sanguine rabbit, and the phlegmatic ox. They represent humanity's temperaments based on the four humors, bodily fluids that were the basis of theories of the body's function developed by the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates. Before the fall, these humors had been in equilibrium. Just afterwards, one or another predominated in each individual and caused the mortality and particular ills of each person. The tension, this is what I found fun, between the cat and the mouse down at the bottom. Down at the base of Adam's feet, you see the little mouse. And over at the base of the tree, you see the great big cat. And they're looking at each other. You can just feel that tension. This tension symbolizes the relation between Adam and Eve at the crucial moment in the fall of man. The parrot above Adam's head off to the left. It's a messenger or link between humanity and the spirit world and can be seen as a symbol for the virgin birth of Jesus. He's perched on the tree of life in opposition to the serpent. We see the serpent winding its way down the tree, around the tree of knowledge. The goat standing on a crag in the background. We see the goat. I think the goat is behind Eve. It's the Christian symbol for the damned. The introduction of these symbols into the image enlivens the biblical context and explains the fall from grace in humanistic terms. Biblical works on paper allowed these images to be reproduced in books and therefore helped spread the word. Next slide. Here we have Madonna and Child by Giovanni Bellini, our Italian artist. In contrast to the Gozzoli, this is a Mary and Jesus for the average Venetian worshiper. The images demonstrate the Christian belief that Jesus is both human and divine. Mary is depicted in the traditional blue and red, but in plain garments, not made of the sumptuous fabrics we saw in the previous picture. She is also seen in an Italian landscape, not on a throne, connecting her even more with common people. The green curtain separates mother and child from the background. This adds to the feeling that she is one of us, but still separate from us. Mary is depicted as young and is shown very pensive, very thoughtful, a sign that she understands the fate of her son. She holds the scripture upon which is the artist's signature and the date of the painting. Mary gazes downward. The painting is meant to be seen up high. The faithful would kneel before it so she could look down at them. Bellini was 80 years old when he completed this work and was considered the master of the Venetian style. Remember, he was Titian's teacher in both light, color, and atmosphere. He was the first also to fully embrace the new medium of oil paint. Next slide. Now, this is one of my favorites. This is the Visitation by Rembrandt. And this particular painting invited our former director to come to the museum before he ever became the director because it is so famous. The whole world knows that the DIA owns this work. This major history painting by Rembrandt is the artist's own known representation of the Christian subject of the Visitation. This comes from the Gospel of Luke in the New Testament. Mary learns that her elderly cousin Elizabeth is with child, John the Baptist, at the same time that Mary learns that she will be giving birth to Jesus. Elizabeth is long past childbearing years. Mary then rushes to visit her cousin to share in the good news. When they meet, the child in Elizabeth's womb stirs, which is a signal to Elizabeth that Mary is carrying the Christian Savior. The elderly Zacharias, Elizabeth's husband, is seen exiting the building, and Joseph is seen below Mary, behind, back in the background. The painting is full of Christian symbolism that is highly relevant to the story. We see peacocks, peahens, and chicks. This is the sacred bird of Juno from ancient mythology. Juno is the protectress of women in childbirth. The peacock also symbolizes immortality and Jesus's resurrection. The rose bush. Roses are a symbol for Mary, but the thorns symbolize the crucifixion. Viewers at the time would have been reminded that this faithful reunion is also the first encounter of the women's miraculous children yet unborn, and that there was a great spiritual transformation for all humanity, from the era of law, John the Baptist, to the era of grace, Jesus, the old and the new. Rembrandt infuses the painting with a spectral light that falls on Mary and Elizabeth. It seems to have no outward source, but it tells you immediately what you need to look at and what's important. It's unclear why Rembrandt chose this subject, because the Calvinist Church prohibited public worship of images in the Dutch provinces. One theory is that it was commissioned, it was a work for a Catholic patron. Another theory is that he was drawn to the story because of events in his own life. Rembrandt and his beloved wife, Saskia, had lost their first two children in infancy, and Saskia was pregnant during the first half of 1640, the year of this painting. The child died 2 weeks after her birth. Next slide. Here we have Flight into Egypt, done by this marvelous African-American artist, Henry Osias Tanner. This image depicts the story in the Christian Bible when the Holy Family flees to safety following the threats from King Herod. King Herod had heard that a savior had been born who was going to be king, so he ordered all the male children to be killed, and Mary and Joseph were able to escape. Tanner has taken a modernistic approach to this subject. We don't see any halos over the heads of Mary and Joseph, something that would have been common in similarly themed paintings in previous eras. As a result, these biblical figures become timeless travelers whose anxious journey gives them a universality that extends even to the African American migrants of Tanner's time. The Christian Holy Family is presented as ordinary people traveling toward their destination. And even though the background has detail, the figures are done very impressionistically, and the babe is just a bundle in the arms of Mary. As I said, he provides these visual details on the landscape, but the features of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus are sketchy and without clear features. Now, who was Mr. Tanner? He was born the son of a bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The theme of the flight into Egypt was one of Tanner's favorites. He created it more than 15 times during the course of his career. He spent much of his time living in France. This painting belongs to the DIA, and it's believed to be one of his earliest versions of the subject and considered to be one of the best. And it sets the emotional and visual standard for his later versions. In Tanner's mind, the subject of a biblical flight from persecution might have been linked with the plight of contemporary African Americans, especially those who migrated from southern states to the north. Next slide. Here we have Black Mother and Child by Romer Bearden, another wonderful African American artist. He was so many things. He was an artist, a musician, and writer. He was also a voracious reader. He realized Alan Locke's goals for the new Negro artist, African art as the formal foundation for his collages, and African American folk culture as the subject matter and the basis for compositional design. Through his art, Bearden attempted not only to create an autobiography, an historical narrative about Black life, but also to show the humanity of Black people. Religious subjects reflect Bearden's childhood memories. His focus was on the religious fervor expressed through rituals that remained important and reflected the African American experience. Religious rituals are the means through which people express spiritual beliefs. Bearden's work reflects popular stories from the Bible, including the Annunciation, and religious figures such as Noah, Samson, and Mary and Jesus. Using the images of the biblical Mary and Jesus as a source of inspiration, Bearden creates a tender moment between an African American mother and child, an image that is at once familiar but also personal to the African American community. Bearden began working with collage during the civil rights movement of the 60s. Glossy magazines, being fairly new, added a sense of immediacy to his work. Next slide. Here we have a triptych, an icon of the Virgin Mother. This is an Ethiopian artist. This triptych, or 3 panels, they were used as devotional pieces on church altars or private home altars. At home, it would have been kept by the patriarch. In the church, it would have been used by the priests. The center panel shows Mary with Jesus with representations of the apostles. The left panel, top to bottom, thought to be John the Baptist, unidentified women, which could be Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene. The horse rider is thought to be the angel Gabriel. The right panel, top to bottom. We start with the crucifixion. The middle are thought to be 2 apostles, and the bottom is the risen Jesus with the halo around his head. Ethiopia is one of the earliest Christian traditions in all of Africa. Some scholars believe that Christianity in Ethiopia dates back as far as the 4th century CE, or Common Era. Within 300 years of Christianity's beginnings, monks brought Christianity to Egypt and Ethiopia. In the years following each introduction, new religions took hold in parts of the continent in varying degrees in the wake of trade, conquest, colonization, and missionary work. While some Africans became Christian or Muslim, others held to their traditional spiritual practices. And some Africans seamlessly blended traditions of Christianity or Muslim into their own religion. So they combined different elements. Next slide. Here we have Yoruba in Africa, and it's Shango, a shrine for Shango, the Yoruba god of thunder. This wonderful little extra gallery is a shrine that's been recreated by our African curator, and you really need to come see it because this slide doesn't show the details as well as actually coming to see it well. So this is a recreated shrine for Shango, the Yoruba god of thunder. And according to Yoruba tradition, Shango was also the fourth ruler of the Yoruba king, whose reign was marked by prosperity. After his deification, the same prosperity will be bestowed upon its followers. However, because Shango was a tyrant, his people deserted him, causing him to commit suicide. A thunderstorm that followed his death caused widespread loss of life and prosperity. Consequently, the Yoruba now believe that Shango hurls lightning bolts at those who offended him. In Yoruba belief, Shango is a benevolent god who grants wealth and children to his devotees. Indeed, Shango is said to be the protector of twins. So images of twins are often found in shrines dedicated to the god. But the worship of Shango also required a great deal of discipline and self-control because the god is violent and punishes those who commit immoral acts. Next slide. Off to the left in the upper left, we see a Shango altar again, the real thing, not the one that we've recreated. They often contain carved images of women because the god loves women and women play key roles in his rituals. The woman in the center looks calm and cool, an expression that the Yoruba associate with a person who has been possessed by Shango. Shango, having been a twin, is believed to be the protector of twins. The temple posts that we see here, first we see polka dots on the center figure. This symbolizes the Yoruba belief that Shango is the leopard of the sky. Then we go to the temple post. We see the temple posts off to the left and one to the right. And the one on the right shows a mother with child on her back, symbolizing the belief that Shango helps infertile women have children. And then, as we said, in the middle, this bowl in the center of would have been placed in the recreated shrine. It would have marked the most sacred spot in the shrine. The container once held ritual implements used in the worship of Shango, including stone axes, which the Yoruba believe Shango hurls down at his enemies. Thunderstorms expose these ancient stone axes buried in the ground. The Yoruba associate these stone axes with Shango. So, as I said, we see off to the left a photograph of the shrine with their temple posts. And in the middle, we see this bowl marking the most sacred spot of the shrine devoted to Shango. We see the two twins on either side of the woman and the spots of the leopard. And off to the right, in the upper right, we see the mother with child on her back, symbolizing that Shango helps infertile women. Next slide. Now we get to Native American cosmology. In Native American belief, the universe is a sphere, having the sky world or the upper world above and the watery underworld below, with the terrestrial disk of the earth dividing them. The earth is divided into the four quadrants: north, south, east, and west. The human task on earth is to keep the upper world and the underworld in balance. These unseen upper and underworlds are home to powerful spiritual forces that can affect the earth through natural events such as thunderstorms. So we're looking at the raven rattle. Now, animal forms represent spirit helpers that aid shamans or spiritual leaders in performing their many tasks. Using masks and rattles, shamans call to spirit helpers for assistance in curing the sick, prophesying the future, traveling to the spirit world, and protecting the community. The rattle shows a shaman riding on the back of a raven. A frog is on the shaman's chest, and their tongues, the shaman and the frog, touch, signifying the communication between the frog and our world and the upper world, represented by the shaman. The underworld and our world, the frog, with the upper world, which is also the raven. So we have the upper and the underworld combining together here. The raven was allowed to release. Oh, let's talk about the box. The box behind the frog symbolizes the structure which held the sun, the moon, and the stars. The raven was allowed to release the box's content, which gave light to the human world for the first time. This brought life to the Native Americans of the Northwest Coast, part of the origin story. Raven rattles are common to many groups in the Northwest Coast. It speaks of communication between the worlds and would have been used only by a chief. Now, it's a very small object in a case, but when you look at it, the slide shows it, but the detail when you can see it in person is just exquisite. Next slide. Here is a drum representing the Chippewa, the Great Lakes region, Native American. Many Plains nations used hand drums to accompany the prayers and songs of important religious and healing ceremonies. The surfaces of these might also be painted with powerful spiritual images. The visual language of pictographic images convey powerful messages for those with the ability to read them. The images are veiled secrets to those without the right to know, those who had not been initiated with the teachings necessary to read them. This drum has pictographic images that reference otherworldly powers. It's an instrument employed by a Medawiwin practitioner when performing a cure. The circle of the drum is bisected into two fields with a blue band between them. It's a characteristic of a doctor's drum. One side of the drum is painted with a powerful image of a thunderbird, with lightning issuing forth from its head. You see that off to the left. The lightning is coming off its head like horns, alighting near a stationary figure with wings outspread on the right. Perhaps this could be the doctor himself, who has received power from this significant guardian spirit. Next slide. Now we're getting to Hindu traditions. This is Parvati from South India, done in the 13th century. Hindus worship thousands of different gods. They choose which ones they worship, but generally include at least one of the triumvirate: Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the protector, and Shiva, the destroyer. Parvati is the wife of Shiva. She balances him. She can take many forms. Hindus used a caste system to organize their society. One can rise through the castes only through rebirth and reincarnation, and only if they are deemed worthy to rise, if it's their karma to rise. Many Hindus worship in their homes as well as in their temples, creating shrines to particular gods that are special to their families. Parvati is rarely seen without Shiva next to her. This sculpture likely was displayed next to a sculpture of Shiva. A sacred thread is looped over her left shoulder, indicating her high caste and the rite of passage she undertook. Parvati is a symbol of fertility, abundance, bounty of nature, and when with Shiva, marital happiness and equality. She stands on a lotus, which is a symbol or a sign of purity. This sculpture was likely used in processions for special occasions and carried by poles using the 4 rings that we see at the base of this platform. When used in such a profession, it would have been clothed, bejeweled, and covered in flower garlands, Few people would have seen the statue as it is displayed today. When not in use, it was stored in a temple. Next slide. Now we're getting into Buddhist traditions. Here we see the head of Buddha, late 8th century, early 9th century Common Era. This was done in Korea. Buddhist traditions. Buddhists do not worship an omnipotent God. Instead, they pay tribute to a human Buddha who achieved enlightenment. Buddha visits and meditates in temples called stupas. Buddhism was founded in India, but began to spread to China, Tibet, Japan, and Korea, starting in the 1st century CE or Common Era. This sculpture is just a fragment of a larger sculpture that was in a temple. It would have been on a full seated body and is shown in the gallery at the same height as it would have been seen in the temple. The hole in the forehead, where the urna would be, is believed to have been a jewel, probably removed by thieves many decades ago. His face would have been painted gold to reflect his divinity. The elongated earlobes reflect the heavy earrings he wore as a prince before attaining enlightenment. Next slide. Sakamuni as an aesthetic. This charming little sculpture is in the lobby, not the lobby, but in the long connecting corridor that gets you to both the Asian and the Islamic sections of the museum. It's in the north wing. Sakamuni is the Chinese name of an historical Indian prince, Siddhartha Gautama. He is identified as becoming the Buddha or enlightened one. He was the founder of the spiritual practice called Buddhism, which is based on reflective meditation. This painted wooden sculpture shows him after he emerged from the mountains, where he spent 6 years pursuing a life of extreme renunciation. Fasting and meditating, he renounced his former wealthy comforts and princely palace court life. Sakamuni came from what is now India. He is depicted here with Chinese features because he was carved for Chinese Buddhist practice. Sakamuni means sage of the Sakyas, which is the clan to which Siddhartha Gautama belonged. Now, Buddha figures can be identified by their distinctive symbolic characteristics. These include earlobes that represent his past. He was an Indian prince living on the border of Nepal who wore heavy gold earrings that left his earlobes elongated. His monk's robes and emaciated body. This refers to him growing up or giving up his royal status to become a monk, and to his extreme fasting during his 5 years in the mountains. His curly hair represents his renunciation of worldly concerns. He let his hair grow curly and matted because he didn't care about that anymore. The bump on the top of his head symbolizes the seed of wisdom. The bump on his forehead symbolizes all seeing. His skin was once gilded with gold paint, an indication that he is a spiritual being and in the process of enlightenment, whereby he becomes the Buddha. It's a very small object, but as you come down the corridor, you stop and you look, and again, the detail is exquisite. So this ends our talk. Are there any questions? Next slide should say the end. Yes, DIE, thank you. Any questions from anyone? We can channel them through Gail.
Absolutely. That was a great presentation, Connie. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. And yes, if we can, Kim, go back to
I think if
full
you unmute
screen.
people, or if they go to the bottom of the screen and they raise their hand, or they go into the
chat box. You can type your questions in the chat if you'd like, or if you'd like to
chat.
just unmute yourself and if
ask.
you want to open up your camera. I'm also watching on Facebook. If you have a question there, you can
And
type in your question in the comment section, and we would love to hear your question or comment. So you are welcome.
as the person who was the technical end of this, Kimmy, our educational coordinator, as she pointed out before you came, most of these things are available and can be seen at the museum. It's only the contemporary wing that's a little bit disjointed now because of one of our wonderful special exhibits, which I'll talk about after your questions, if
Oh,
there
that'd
are
be
any, or your
great.
comments.
We can't wait to get back into the
Oh, you
DIA.
don't need to wait anymore either. You can go now.
Yes.
Yes, you have to still register on the DIA's website,
Mhm.
and they still at the moment require the masks, even though they've said that you don't need to. I think they're still asking people to still wear masks and to still keep some social distance. But you go on to get your day and your time, and apparently with the protocols easing, they can let more people in per hour. And even though it's primarily manned by staff, they're starting to let some volunteers in to talk to you in special galleries. No tours yet, though. They don't know quite how they're going to handle touring.
Mhm.
But when you walk into a gallery like Rivera Court or the Ancient Middle East, after tomorrow, starting this week, there could very well be a person in there in the mornings talking to you about what's there. And that always adds a special note of richness for those who want it. Now, we're very polite. We do not push our way into people. We gently walk up to you and we say, would you like to know more? And as you say, oh, yes, well, that's the door to the opening for us. Then we talk to you. And periodically, I will stop myself and say, do you want to know more? Because I don't want to overwhelm them. But usually they do, especially in Rivera Court. You give them a little bit and they want more. So again, it's free and it's your museum. So you really need to support it. And since we didn't get any comments.
Actually, we do. I see a comment
we
here.
do.
It says, hi there, one question. How the age of artifacts are found if no evidences?
Well, that's a very good question that unfortunately I don't have an answer to, but our curators can tell. There's elements to every work of art that indicate the age. Both scientific studies now can identify age, x-rays can identify age. Now, it's not a part of this exhibit, but we have a mummy that we've been able to use special x-ray techniques that not only tell us how old it is, but also have been improved so that once we thought our mummy was a female, we now know it's a male. So there are just so many scientific and other techniques that they know about that, in fact, if you wanted to go onto the DIA website and find a curator and ask that question, you could probably get a better, more technical answer because every work of art is going to be different. But remember, these are people who have studied the art, and especially our specialists who restore it, really know how to get to how old something is and how to preserve it.
Sounds great. You said thank you. Very good.
Oh,
I know we
you're
had a
welcome.
full bus load just before the pandemic. We had a bus load and a half bus load waiting just before we had to cancel. So as soon as we have the opportunity to load that back up again, we will definitely do so at the Novi Library.
Remember, if you don't already know, that Thursdays are Senior Thursdays, and they have very special talks on Zoom for seniors. And then Wednesday, if you're a member, Wednesday morning is for members to come. Not that they exclude you if you're not a member, but it gives you a little extra reason for coming on a Wednesday morning. And our special exhibit that's been extended. We have a car design exhibit that was, it took 5 years of our assistant curator's time to put it together, to get permission from the big three, to get these real concept cars that are actually physically in the museum, along with drawings of the cars and other art associated with these cars, that it was supposed to end the end of June, but we've extended it to January. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to see the development of car design from 1950 to the present day, which takes over apparently from an early exhibit many, many years ago that took us up to 1950. Now it's only cars. It's not trucks or SUVs, because they would take their own special exhibit. But just the cars alone, they're not crowded galleries. They're very lightly decorated, but they are so interesting. The drawings especially, They did these just as everyday things that they did to move along the concept of a car. And before computers were used, it was hand drawn. And these concepts are just unbelievably imaginative because they reflect the time. They reflect our interest in jet travel and space travel. And a lot of those concepts are reflected onto cars that were then evolved into more usable cars. But the fact that they were seeing these exquisite ideas, even though they didn't see the light of day other than the concept, is a tribute to our imagination. It's something that's fun to visualize and really see how very, very creative Detroit has been and still is. And that's our heritage of being the birthplace, the birthplace of cars and their design.
Absolutely.
What a better place to have this kind of an exhibit.
Mm-hmm. You bring such light to everything. It makes us want to rush out right now and go to the DIA.
Oh, and then for those of you that like to buy things, and that includes me.
Oh, yes.
The gift shop is fully open, and they have a couple of absolutely marvelous new things. If I had the right kind of house, I would utilize it, but my house doesn't lend itself. If there's a particular work of art that you like, that the DIA owns, you can get wallpaper of that design and put it on one whole wall in your house. Can you imagine having something from a Vera Court as a permanent part of your house, or having, something by the painting we've done by Monet or something by Van Gogh in your house? Oh my. Now, I do have a favorite painting. It's the two little girls gathering chestnuts, which I got when I was first married as a extra special present for my husband, because he knew I loved these two little girls in the woods. And the light has faded it. It's been many, many years. So over the years, it has faded. So what am I getting for an anniversary present? But a brand new painting,
Yay.
which the DIA sells. And you can go online, and it's very exciting. You can pick your frame. They allow you to show the painting in different frames. So you can see, oh, here's what it would look like in silver. Here's what it would look like in like an imitation gold or bronze. You can pick the size. It'll show you what each size looks like. It shows you what each frame looks like. It tells you can get it as a print or some other version. I forget what it is. Or on paper or on something else, or on canvas. I think I'm getting mine on canvas. And so we picked out all these things that I like, and then we ordered it, and it came, and I let my husband whisk it off somewhere because our anniversary is not till July the 23rd. And then I'll say, oh, what a lovely surprise.
You'll be surprised all over again.
Yeah, and it goes on a wall in another room. For a small house, we've got rooms, the names of all of these rooms, like you think I was a little art museum. Like this is now my Zoom room, and it used to be my my video and my DVD collection and music collection. It used to be like the music room, but now it's the Zoom room.
Now it's the Zoom room. I think we all have one of those now during this past year. You have to pick out a Zoom room or Zoom space.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Connie.
Everybody see their wonderful DIA, and please come, because this museum belongs to you, and our curators and staff have kept it up so beautifully. It hasn't gone away. And it's like being in your own private museum, because there aren't hordes of people yet.
For sure. Thank you so much, Connie. And then as you make your plans to visit the DIA, also we will have another virtual behind the scene program here July the 27th at 6:30 p.m. And this is titled In Our Own Voices, and it's African American Art. So please go to our website or our calendar and register to receive the Zoom link for that presentation. Expecting another great time there as well.
It really will be, because thanks to General Motors, we are one of the few museums to have a dedicated curator to African American art.
Wonderful. Love it.
She is so good. She goes out, and not only do we have older works, but marvelous new contemporary. Kehinde Wiley, who did the portrait of the president, we have a Kehinde Wiley of a beautiful African-American man on a horse, because the horse gives you power and authority. And there he is on this horse, and it gives him power and authority, but yet he's still dressed in his wife beater t-shirt and blue jeans because he hasn't lost his identity. But Kehinde felt there needs to be more works of art that people can see African Americans in that don't exist on the walls of museums. It does now because he's such a wonderfully popular artist that his works are selling like crazy. In fact, we were lucky to get the one we did get. And there are other museums. It was a series he did. Brooklyn has one, and other museums have these marvelous young men on these horses. And he goes to a street in a big city. He finds a young man. He takes him back to his studio. He lets the young man look through a book of art, and the young man picks the portrait that he likes. And our portrait is an actual French portrait in the Louvre. And we show a little tiny picture of it next to the one Kehinde did. And he has changed it in that the horse is there and some of the other visual symbols. But instead of a French soldier, he has this marvelous young man who now is not an ordinary young man anymore. Now he has power and authority just being on the horse that's granted to him. And it's so exciting. So you'll love that talk.
I
All of
certainly
our
am
African
excited. I'm
American
ready.
art
I'm
is
ready.
just exquisite.
For sure. Connie, thank you so much.
Oh,
Kimmy,
you're
thank
very
you as
welcome.
well. We appreciate the DIA very much for these presentations, and we look forward to seeing you again virtually and in person. So I
Yes.
appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Everyone, have a good night. Thank you for those of you who are joining us on Zoom as well as Facebook, and still a little bit more daylight out there, so get out and enjoy. Have a good evening.
How many people did we have all together again? Gail, how many people did we have all together?
You know what? I'll do a count. I'm not looking at the count right now, but I will update you shortly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Connie. Bye. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.